Admiral James Harrison stood at the reinforced window of Global Defense Command, watching Earth's orbital defense platforms transform into expanding clouds of debris. Each explosion reflected in his steel-gray eyes, mapping the death of humanity's first line of defense against the stars. "Status report," he commanded, his voice steady despite the catastrophe unfolding above. Colonel Victoria Petrov's fingers danced across her holographic display. "The Kryvacs have destroyed 60% of our orbital grid, sir. Their energy weapons?" She hesitated. "We've never seen anything like them. They're not just destroying our satellites. They're unmaking them at the atomic level." The Kryvacs had arrived 3 days ago, their massive ships appearing simultaneously at strategic points around Earth's orbit. Their message was brief: surrender all resources and accept status as a protectorate or face extinction. Humanity's unified response had been equally succinct: no. Now they were paying the price for their defiance. "Sir," Lieutenant Raj Patel called from his communications station, "Director Shannon from Helios Base is requesting immediate contact. Priority Ultra." Harrison's eyebrows rose slightly. Helios Base was officially a deep space monitoring station in Antarctica. Unofficially, it was something else entirely. "Patch her through to my private terminal." Director Catherine Shannon's face appeared on his screen, her dark skin ashen with exhaustion. "James, we need you at Helios. Now." "Project Orpheus is ready." Harrison's breath caught. Project Orpheus wasn't supposed to be operational for another 8 months. "Catherine, we're in the middle of losing," she cut him off. "You've seen the same reports I have. Conventional weapons aren't going to stop them. But what we've built here—" She leaned closer to the camera. "We've cracked it, James. The quantum fold drive works. And we've integrated the dark matter containment system." Harrison glanced back at the window, where another defense platform was dissolving under alien fire. "How sure are you?" "Sure enough to bet Earth's survival on it." She paused. "We need your combat experience to make this work. You're still the best tactical commander we have." Before Harrison could respond, the building shook. Emergency lights flashed as distant explosions echoed through the complex. "They've broken through the atmospheric defense grid," Petrov reported, her voice tight. "First strikes reported in major cities worldwide." Harrison made his decision. "Catherine, I'm bringing a team. Have your security clear us for immediate landing." He turned to his officers. "Colonel Petrov, Lieutenant Patel, you're with me. Command transfers to General Weber effective immediately." As they hurried to the underground maglev that would take them to the nearest secure airfield, Patel voiced what they were all thinking. "Sir, what's Project Orpheus?" Harrison waited until they were sealed in their private car. 6 years ago, we recovered something from a crashed Kryvac scout ship. Not weapons or engines, but something more valuable: data. Their scientific databases. We couldn't understand most of it, but our scientists noticed something interesting. The Kryvacs, for all their advanced technology, think in straight lines. Their physics, their mathematics, all follow predictable patterns. The maglev accelerated to supersonic speeds as Harrison continued. "Human minds work differently. We see connections they don't, patterns they'd never consider. When we applied our understanding of quantum mechanics to their technology," he smiled grimly, "we created something new, something they've never seen before." "A weapon?" Petrov asked. "A ship," Harrison replied. "But not just any ship. Imagine a vessel that doesn't move through space, but rather pulls space through itself. That doesn't fire conventional weapons, but rather manipulates the fundamental forces of reality." The maglev began to slow as they approached their destination. "The Kryvacs think they're dealing with a primitive species," Harrison said, checking his sidearm. "They expect us to fight like they do, with brute force and overwhelming numbers. They don't understand that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons." "What is it, sir?" Patel asked as they emerged into the hangar where a hypersonic transport waited. Harrison's eyes hardened as he watched another explosion bloom in the distant sky. "Our ability to imagine the impossible, then make it real. The Kryvacs think they're here to end humanity's story. Instead, they're about to become part of it." As their transport lifted off, cloaking systems engaged, Harrison allowed himself a moment of hope. Above them, The Kryvax fleet continued their systematic destruction of Earth's defenses, unaware that in a hidden base at the bottom of the world, humanity was preparing to rewrite the rules of warfare itself. The real question wasn't whether Project Orpheus would work. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity was about to unleash. The descent into Helios base felt like diving into Earth's ancient history. Their transport plunged through carefully hidden entrance tunnels, boring deeper into the Antarctic bedrock until they reached a cavern that shouldn't have existed. "My God!" Petrov whispered as the hangar lights illuminated their destination. The ship hung suspended in a cradle of exotic materials, its hull reflecting the harsh industrial lighting with an almost liquid shimmer. It was smaller than the Kryvax vessels, roughly the size of a pre-war destroyer, but something about its design suggested lethal efficiency. Unlike the blocky, brutalist architecture of the alien ships, this vessel's lines flowed like a predator's, all curved surfaces and sharp edges. Director Shannon met them at the landing pad, her dark hair streaked with premature gray. "Welcome to Project Orpheus," she said, leading them toward the ship. "Though we're calling her the Phoenix now, seemed appropriate given the circumstances." "How many?" Harrison asked, studying the organized chaos of technicians and engineers swarming around the vessel. 250 crew, all handpicked. We've been training them in simulators for the past year." She gestured to a nearby holographic display showing the ship's internal layout. "The quantum fold drive takes up about 30% of the internal volume. The dark matter containment system another 20%. But it's what we can do with them that matters." They entered a secure briefing room where Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the project's lead physicist, waited with displays ready. Her eyes burned with the intensity of someone who had seen the impossible and learned to harness it. "The Kryvax use what we call brute force physics," she explained, bringing up comparative diagrams. "Their drives create bubbles of warped space-time. Their weapons are basically focused beams of exotic particles. Effective, but predictable. We took a different approach." The displays showed complex mathematical models that made Harrison's head hurt. "Instead of fighting against space-time," Tanaka continued, "we fold it. The Phoenix doesn't move through space so much as it pulls its destination closer, then snaps back like a rubber band. And the energy released in that snap can be weaponized," Petrov finished, beginning to understand. "Precisely. Every jump creates a temporary vacuum in reality itself. Anything caught in that void?" Tanaka's smile was fierce. "Well, let's just say the Kryvax shields won't help them. You can't defend against something that temporarily removes the laws of physics." Lieutenant Patel studied the weapon systems display. "But we'll only have one shot at surprise. Once they see what we can do, they'll adapt," Harrison nodded. "Which is why our first strike needs to count. Director Shannon, what's our operational status?" Catherine's face tightened. "The Phoenix is at 93%. We're running final checks on the fold drive, but..." The facility's alarms suddenly screamed to life. Red emergency lights pulsed as a voice came over the speakers. Multiple Kryvax signatures detected on approach vector. "They found us." Harrison turned to Shannon. "How?" "The base is shielded. They must have detected our test jumps," Tanaka said, rushing to a console. "The fold drive leaves a unique signature in space-time. If they were looking for anything unusual..." The facility shook as the first bombs hit the surface ice above. Chunks of frozen rock fell from the ceiling as stabilizers struggled to compensate. "Time to launch?" Harrison demanded. Shannon consulted her tablet. 20 minutes for minimum safe power-up. The fold drive needs time to... Another explosion, closer this time. Warning lights flashed across every console in the room. "They're burning through the ice cap," Patel reported, monitoring the defense grid. 3 heavy cruisers, multiple support craft. Time to breach, 8 minutes. Harrison looked at the Phoenix through the briefing room's window, his mind racing through scenarios. They couldn't let the Kryvax capture this technology, but an unsafe launch could tear the ship apart. "Dr. Tanaka," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos, "what happens if we force a cold start of the fold drive?" Her eyes widened. "It's never been tested. The energy cascade could. Could it work?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Theoretically. But we'd be flying blind. No way to calculate safe jump distances. One mistake, and we'd scatter ourselves across half the galaxy. Harrison turned to Shannon. Start evacuation procedures for non-essential personnel. Colonel Petrov, get to tactical. Lieutenant Patel, navigation. Director Shannon, I need you on engineering. Dr. Tanaka, you're with me on the bridge. Admiral, Shannon protested, the risk is better than the certainty of letting them capture this ship. He was already moving, issuing orders through his neural link to the pre-selected crew. We launch in 5 minutes. They reached the bridge as another explosion rocked the facility. Through the external cameras, they could see the Kryvax ships positioning themselves above, their weapons burning through kilometers of ice with terrifying efficiency. The Phoenix's systems came online around them, holographic displays flickering to life as the crew raced to their stations. The ship hummed with power, but warning indicators flashed everywhere as the full drive struggled with its forced activation. Hull breach in sectors 7 through 12, someone shouted. They're inside the facility. Full drive at 40%, Shannon reported from engineering. It's not enough for a controlled jump. Harrison strapped himself into the command chair, feeling the ship tremble as its systems fought against their rushed awakening. On the main display, he could see Kryvax boarding parties entering the upper levels of the base. Their mechanized infantry moved with ruthless precision, overwhelming the security teams. 3 minutes until they reached the main hangar, Petrov announced from tactical. Harrison opened a channel to all decks. All hands, this is the Admiral. Brace for emergency launch. We're about to attempt something that's either going to change the course of this war or make us a very spectacular footnote in history. Either way, he allowed himself a grim smile. We're about to show the Kryvax why they should have left Earth alone. The hangar doors above them began to open, revealing the Kryvax ships silhouetted against the Antarctic sky. Their weapons were already charging, preparing to destroy this last, desperate human project. They had no idea they were about to witness the birth of a new era in warfare, one where humanity's greatest weakness, their unpredictable, impossible dreams, would become their greatest strength. Navigation, Harrison ordered. Plot us a course straight through their formation. Engineering, give us whatever power you can. Tactical, prepare to show them what happens when humanity rewrites the rules of physics. The Phoenix's engines ignited as the full drive screamed toward critical mass. Above them, the Kryvax opened fire, their energy weapons reaching down to snuff out this final act of defiance. They were about to learn that humanity's defiance was just beginning. The Phoenix erupted from its underground cradle in a burst of quantum fire. Kryvax energy beams sliced through the space where the ship had been milliseconds before, but Lieutenant Patel's lightning-quick adjustments kept them just ahead of destruction. Full drive at 60%. Shannon's voice was tight with controlled panic. Structure holding, but the containment field is fluctuating. Harrison felt the ship buck beneath him as they climbed through the atmosphere. The Kryvax cruisers above them adjusted their formation, clearly expecting the Phoenix to behave like every other human vessel they destroyed. Their tactical doctrine was about to get a radical update. Dr. Tanaka, Harrison called out. Time to test your theories. Lieutenant Patel, plot a microjump. Put us behind their lead cruiser. Sir, Patel's fingers flew across his controls. At this power level, the spatial calculations will have to be good enough. Execute. For a moment, reality seemed to bend. Every crew member felt their consciousness stretch like taffy as the quantum full drive engaged. Then, with a sensation like a cosmic rubber band snapping, the Phoenix vanished. They reappeared exactly where Harrison had ordered, directly behind the Kryvax flagship. But more importantly, the space they just vacated imploded. The vacuum created by their jump collapsed with devastating force, sending out a shockwave of twisted space-time that shredded the shields of nearby Kryvax ships like tissue paper. By all that's holy, Petrov whispered from tactical, watching the destruction. It actually worked. Multiple hull breaches detected on enemy vessels, Patel reported, his voice steadier now. Their shield configurations can't handle the spatial distortions. Harrison allowed himself a tight smile. Colonel Petrov, demonstrate our main weapons array. Let's show them what happens when human ingenuity meets alien technology. Petrov's hands danced across her tactical display. The Phoenix's weapon ports opened, revealing apparatus that looked more like scientific instruments than traditional weapons. They fired, not beams or projectiles, but concentrated bursts of dark matter that ignored shields and armor alike, disrupting the very atomic structure of their targets. A Kryvax support ship came apart at the molecular level, its crew experiencing a mercifully quick end as their vessel dissolved into its component atoms. "Enemy fleet is responding," Patel announced. "They're adjusting formation, attempting to box us in." "They still think in straight lines," Harrison observed. "Show them some curves, Lieutenant. Plot a series of random microjumps." "Dr. Tanaka, can we weaponize the fold wake itself?" The physicist was already working at her station. "If we calibrate the drive to create overlapping spatial distortions, yes, but it will put immense strain on the containment systems." "Do it." Director Shannon, prepare to channel emergency power to structural integrity. Everyone else, brace for maneuvers. We're about to rewrite the book on space combat. The Phoenix danced through space like a quantum ghost, appearing and disappearing in a deadly ballet. Each jump left behind a tear in reality that the Kryvax ships couldn't avoid. Their rigid formation, so effective against conventional attacks, became a liability as the spatial distortions cascaded through their fleet. Enemy casualties at 40%, Petrov reported with fierce satisfaction. "They're attempting to withdraw to higher orbit." "Not so confident now that the prey is fighting back," Harrison muttered. Then louder, "Push them back further. I want—" "Admiral," Shannon's voice cut through the bridge. "Containment fields are failing. The quantum cascade is becoming unstable." Harrison felt the deck shudder beneath him. Warning lights flashed across every console as the Phoenix's revolutionary drive system approached critical limits. "Status of the Kryvax fleet?" "Scattered, sir," Petrov replied. 2 cruisers destroyed, 3 heavily damaged. The remainder are retreating to their staging area behind the moon. Harrison made a quick decision. "Plot a course for the dark side of Saturn. We need time to stabilize the drive and assess our capabilities." He opened a channel to engineering. "Catherine, can we manage one more long jump?" "If we don't mind glowing in the dark for a few weeks," she replied grimly. "But after that, we'll need at least 12 hours to recalibrate the containment systems." "One jump it is. Lieutenant Patel, get us out of here." Colonel Petrov, launch quantum buoys to track the enemy fleet's movements. The Phoenix made its final jump just as the last Kryvax ships disappeared behind the moon. In the sudden quiet of Saturn's shadow, the crew began to process what they'd just accomplished. "Damage report," Harrison ordered, unstrapping from his command chair. "Hull integrity at 78%, Shannon reported. "The full drive needs a complete recalibration, but the basic systems are intact. Most importantly, we've proved the concept works." "More than works," Tanaka added, her eyes bright with scientific excitement. "The spatial distortions were far more effective than our simulations predicted. And the dark matter weapons," she gestured to her readings, "they completely bypassed their defensive systems." Harrison nodded, studying the tactical display where the quantum buoys tracked the Kryvax fleet regrouping behind the moon. "They'll adapt," he said quietly. "They're not foolish, just predictable. We need to press our advantage while we still have it." He turned to his bridge crew. "What we did today wasn't just win a battle. We showed the galaxy that humanity isn't just another primitive species to be conquered. We're something they've never encountered before. A race that doesn't just think outside their box. We deny the existence of the box entirely." "Sir," Patel called from navigation, "long-range sensors are detecting multiple Kryvax reinforcement fleets entering the system. They're calling in everything they have." Harrison's smile was predatory. "Good. While we repair and recharge, I want every department working on new ways to use our technologies. They think they've seen everything we can do? We're just getting started." The Phoenix hung in Saturn's shadow, its quantum drive slowly stabilizing as the crew prepared for the next phase of the war. They had shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their ability to imagine new possibilities and make them real. The Kryvax had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened something unprecedented. a species that could turn their greatest weakness, their unpredictable, impossible dreams, into their greatest strength. The real war was about to begin. 12 hours and Saturn's shadow had transformed the Phoenix and its crew. What began as emergency repairs evolved into something more. Innovation. They're beautiful, aren't they? Dr. Tanaka stood beside Harrison on the bridge, watching the swarm of quantum probes they'd constructed during their brief respite. Each one contained a miniaturized version of their full drive, capable of creating localized spatial distortions. We're calling them Fireflies. Harrison nodded, studying the tactical display where hundreds of small, glowing points orbited the Phoenix. How many can we control simultaneously? With the new quantum entanglement network? All of them. Lieutenant Patel developed an interface that lets us coordinate their jumps with unprecedented precision. She smiled. The Kryvax are about to learn that humans excel at turning scientific principles into weapons. Speaking of the Kryvax, Petrov interrupted from her station. Long-range sensors show they've consolidated their forces around Luna Base. 7 capital ships, at least 20 support vessels. They're preparing for a final push to Earth, Harrison mused. They think they've driven us off, given themselves time to adapt to our capabilities. Have they? Shannon asked, joining them on the bridge. Adapted, I mean? See for yourself. Harrison gestured to the tactical display, where sensor data showed the Kryvax fleet's modifications. They've adjusted their shield harmonics, restructured their formation to minimize spatial distortion damage. If we tried our previous tactics, we'd be predictable, Tanaka finished. Exactly what they expect from a primitive species. Harrison's smile was cold. Fortunately, we've learned a few new tricks. Director Shannon, is the quantum resonance chamber ready? Tested and calibrated. Though I still think you're insane for wanting to try this. Noted. Colonel Petrov, prepare the Fireflies for wide pattern deployment. Lieutenant Patel, plot us a course straight for the heart of their fleet. The bridge crew stared at him. Sir, Patel said carefully, they've positioned their ships specifically to counter a direct assault. Exactly. They're thinking linearly again. Harrison took his command chair. What they don't realize is that we're not going to fight their way. We're going to make them fight in spaces that shouldn't exist. The Phoenix emerged from Saturn's shadow, its swarm of fireflies creating a glittering wake behind it. On the Kryvax flagship, Admiral Zextal watched the approaching vessel with something approaching admiration. So, he rumbled to his command staff, they returned to die with honor. The human ship's previous attack had shocked the Kryvax Empire. Never in their 1,000-year history of conquest had they encountered a species that could manipulate space-time itself as a weapon. But now they were ready. Their shields were modified, their formations optimized to disperse spatial distortions. They expected the Phoenix to attempt another series of short jumps, trying to recreate their earlier success. Instead, the human vessel did something unprecedented. It charged straight at them, its cloud of mysterious devices spreading out in an ever-widening sphere. Hold positions, Harrison commanded as they approached the Kryvax line. Wait for them to commit. The enemy fleet opened fire, their energy weapons creating a wall of destruction that would atomize any vessel caught in it. But the Phoenix didn't dodge or jump away. Now! At Harrison's command, every Firefly activated simultaneously. But instead of creating individual spatial distortions, they linked together, their quantum fields resonating in perfect harmony. The space around the Kryvax fleet began to fold in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Quantum resonance chamber at full power, Shannon reported, her voice tight with concentration. Field stability at 90%. Through the main viewport, reality itself seemed to twist. The Firefly's combined effect created a bubble of altered space-time that engulfed the entire Kryvax fleet. Inside this bubble, conventional physics began to break down. They're trying to retreat, Petrov announced, watching the enemy ships struggle against forces they couldn't comprehend. Their engines are at full power, but in this space, their concept of propulsion doesn't work, Tanaka finished, her eyes gleaming. They're trying to move in straight lines through curved space. Harrison watched as the mighty Kryvax vessels began to drift helplessly, their carefully planned formations dissolving into chaos. Colonel Petrov, Target their command and control nodes with dark matter lances. Let's see how well they fight when they can't coordinate. The Phoenix's main weapons opened fire, each shot precisely calculated to take advantage of the twisted spacetime around their targets. Kryvak's ships began to break apart, their atomic bonds disrupted by forces their shields were never designed to repel. Enemy fleet is in disarray, Patel reported. There, sir. They're trying to signal us. On screen, Admiral Zextal's alien features appeared before them, his ceremonial armor scarred from internal explosions. What manner of demons are you? He demanded. Harrison stood, facing the alien commander. We're not demons, Admiral. We're humans. You came to our world thinking we were primitive, that our technology was inferior. What you failed to understand is that humanity's strength isn't in our weapons or our ships. He gestured to the dissolving Kryvak's fleet. Our strength is in our minds, in our ability to dream up the impossible and then make it real. You fight wars with rules and doctrine. He smiled, we change the rules themselves. The Empire will not forget this, Zextal growled. Good. Harrison's voice hardened. Because this is just the beginning. You came to Earth looking for an easy conquest. Instead, you've awakened something you can't control. Human ingenuity unleashed. Remember this day, Admiral. Remember what happened when you pushed humanity to its limits. The transmission cut off as the Kryvak's flagship systems finally succumbed to the quantum distortions. Around them, the once mighty alien fleet drifted in pieces, their technology rendered useless by forces they couldn't understand. Orders, sir? Petrov asked quietly. Harrison studied the tactical display, where Earth glowed blue and beautiful in the distance. Set course for home. It's time to share what we've learned with the rest of humanity. The Kryvaks thought they were starting a war of conquest. He turned to his crew, seeing in their eyes the same fierce pride he felt. Instead, they've sparked a revolution in human technology and warfare. And the galaxy will never be the same. 3 months after the Battle of Luna, Earth's skyline had changed. Quantum fold generators dotted the planet's orbital space, their crystalline structures weaving an impenetrable defense grid. Below them, the first fleet of Phoenix-class vessels took shape in orbital shipyards, each incorporating lessons learned from their prototype's historic victory. Admiral Harrison stood in the newly constructed Quantum Command, watching holographic displays track Kryvak's fleet movements across the galaxy. The aliens had withdrawn to their core systems, but intelligence suggested they were planning something desperate. They're afraid, Director Shannon said, joining him at the window. She looked different now. They all did. The weight of their achievement had changed them. The other galactic powers are watching. The Kryvak's empire's reputation for invincibility is shattered. Fear makes them dangerous, Harrison replied, studying a tactical projection. Dr. Tanaka's analysis suggests they're attempting to replicate our quantum technology. Admiral Zextal's alien features appeared before them, his ceremonial armor scarred from internal explosions. What manner of demons are you? He demanded. Harrison stood, facing the alien commander. We're not demons, Admiral. We're humans. You came to our world thinking we were primitive, that our technology was inferior. What you failed to understand is that humanity's strength isn't in our weapons or our ships. He gestured to the dissolving Kryvak's fleet. Our strength is in our minds, in our ability to dream up the impossible and then make it real. You fight wars with rules and doctrine. He smiled, we change the rules themselves. The Empire will not forget this, Zextal growled. Good. Harrison's voice hardened. Because this is just the beginning. You came to Earth looking for an easy conquest. Instead, you've awakened something you can't control. Human ingenuity unleashed. Remember this day, Admiral. Remember what happened when you pushed humanity to its limits. The transmission cut off as the Kryvak's flagship systems finally succumbed to the quantum distortions. Around them, the once mighty alien fleet drifted in pieces, their technology rendered useless by forces they couldn't understand. Orders, sir? Petrov asked quietly. Harrison studied the tactical display, where Earth glowed blue and beautiful in the distance. Set course for home. It's time to share what we've learned with the rest of humanity. The Kryvaks thought they were starting a war of conquest. He turned to his crew, seeing in their eyes the same fierce pride he felt. Instead, they've sparked a revolution in human technology and warfare. And the galaxy will never be the same. 3 months after the Battle of Luna, Earth's skyline had changed. Quantum fold generators dotted the planet's orbital space, their crystalline structures weaving an impenetrable defense grid. Below them, the first fleet of Phoenix-class vessels took shape in orbital shipyards, each incorporating lessons learned from their prototype's historic victory. Admiral Harrison stood in the newly constructed Quantum Command, watching holographic displays track Kryvak's fleet movements across the galaxy. The aliens had withdrawn to their core systems, but intelligence suggested they were planning something desperate. "They're afraid," Director Shannon said, joining him at the window. She looked different now. They all did. The weight of their achievement had changed them. The other galactic powers are watching. The Kryvak's empire's reputation for invincibility is shattered. "Fear makes them dangerous," Harrison replied, studying a tactical projection. "Dr. Tanaka's analysis suggests they're attempting to replicate our quantum technology." Without success, Tanaka herself interjected, entering with her latest reports. "They understand the principles now, but they can't duplicate the results. Their entire scientific framework is too rigid. They keep trying to force quantum mechanics to follow their rules." Harrison nodded. The Kryvak's greatest strength, their technological superiority, had become their weakness. Centuries of unchallenged dominance had left them unable to think beyond their established paradigms. "Sir," Lieutenant Patel's voice came over the comm, "long-range quantum sensors are detecting something massive. Multiple Kryvak signatures, approaching from 6 different vectors." The holographic display updated, showing the incoming threat. Harrison's expression hardened. "They're not coming for conquest this time. This is extermination." The Kryvak's fleet was unlike anything they'd seen before. Hundreds of ships, including dozens of their dreaded World-Breaker-class dreadnoughts. The kind of force that could reduce a planet's surface to molten slag. "They mean to end this decisively," Shannon observed, "before our technology can spread to other races." Harrison's response was interrupted by an urgent signal from the quantum communications array. The face that appeared on the main screen wasn't Kryvak's. It belonged to a species humanity had never seen before. "Greetings, defenders of Earth," the alien said, its crystalline features shifting in what might have been a smile. "I am Ambassador Zern of the Galactic Concordat. We've been watching your struggle with great interest." Harrison straightened. The Concordat was legendary, a coalition of advanced species that remained neutral in galactic affairs. "Ambassador, we're honored. But we're also about to face an extinction-level attack." "Yes, about that." Zern's features rippled. The Concordat has long maintained balance in the galaxy by preventing any one power from becoming dominant. The Kryvak's have disturbed this balance. Their response to your innovation threatens to destabilize entire sectors. "With respect, Ambassador," Shannon interrupted, "we're a bit busy preparing for survival." "Oh, you misunderstand," Zern said. "We're not here to negotiate. We're here to offer partnership. Your quantum fold technology, it's beautiful, elegant. You've discovered principles that even our oldest members never conceived of. The Kryvak's see it as a weapon. We see it as the key to the galaxy's next great advancement." The display split, showing new signatures approaching. Sleek ships of clearly advanced design. "The Concordat fleet. What exactly are you proposing?" Harrison asked carefully. "The Kryvak's must be stopped, not just for Earth's sake, but for galactic stability. We offer you immediate membership in the Concordat, sharing of technologies, and joint action against the approaching fleet. In return, you share your quantum innovations with us. Together, we can reshape the very fabric of space-time itself." Harrison exchanged looks with his team. Humanity had dreamed of reaching the stars, of joining a larger galactic community. But they'd expected to do it as supplicants, begging for scraps of advanced technology. Instead, they were being courted as equals, all because they dared to dream differently. "One condition," Harrison said. "When this is over, the Kryvak's aren't destroyed. They're reformed, shown a new way of thinking." Zern's crystalline features arranged themselves into what was definitely a smile. "Teaching the universe's oldest empire to think like humans? That may be your most ambitious experiment yet. The next hours were a blur of preparation. The Phoenix, now joined by its first sister ships and the Concordat fleet, prepared to meet the Kryvax armada. But this time, they weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to prove that innovation, imagination, and the ability to see beyond established limits were the true measure of a species' worth. As Harrison took his command chair for what would become known as the Battle of Six Vectors, he reflected on how far they'd come. The Kryvax had arrived at Earth expecting to find primitives. Instead, they'd found humanity, a species that turned disadvantage into opportunity, that saw possibilities where others saw limits. All ships, this is Admiral Harrison, he broadcast to the combined fleet. Today we're not just defending Earth. We're defending the right of every species to dream beyond their limits, to imagine new possibilities, to rewrite the rules of reality itself. The Kryvax come in force because they fear change. Let's show them why. The quantum full drives of 100 ships spun up in perfect harmony, preparing to demonstrate that humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't a weapon or a technology. It was the ability to look at the impossible and ask, why not? The battle that followed would reshape more than just space-time. It would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what was possible when imagination was unleashed. And in the centuries to come, historians would mark this as the moment when humanity truly arrived on the galactic stage. Not as conquerors or victims, but as innovators who taught the stars themselves new ways to shine.